But I do want to get to the Big 12, and I think, as much as we were excited about this weekend in the Big 12, in the SEC, obviously Georgia-Bama lived up to it. I don't think you could have more predicted the unbelievable endings to games this weekend in the Big 12. And you look at, for instance, BYU. And I look at BYU, they win again, they're 5-0. And I think very simply the question is BYU football the best team in the Big 12 conference? Well, certainly the answer is no, they are not. And as much as I think it's a great story, as much as I think BYU fan needed this kind of injection of euphoria, BYU is playing very good football. Their level best football is still not as good as, I don't even think, Utah. I think right now Iowa State, if I had to pick one on a Monday, I would take Iowa State, who won again this weekend. I don't think BYU is amongst the elites in the Big 12, but they are certainly playing great football. And I think it goes a long way to the strength of this Big 12 conference. And I know that's been bandied about. Should they get an AQ? Will they get two teams in? It doesn't matter. What makes up a great conference is the bottom half of the conference. And there is no question BYU was predicted to be at the bottom of this conference. Today, Jake, they find themselves on top, and I think they've earned it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, they're like you said, they're playing great football. I mean, I do think that, as the bye week comes and goes here, guys like Jake Retzloff need to get it together in terms of taking care of the football. And there are some other things that they can improve on and work on. But I do think overall, you couldn't ask for a better start. The 5-0 silences the haters of Kalani Sitake, saying that he should be on the hot seat this year. You're going to be bowl eligible. There's no question about that now. And I think that, this game served as a benchmark, in my opinion, a measuring stick of the toughness of this team. Now, are they the best team in the Big 12? No, they're not the best team in the Big 12. And, if I'm BYU fan, I don't blame you for, going after Utah fan or being salty or talking a bunch of junk. That's fine. Yeah, I don't blame you for that. I would be talking junk too at 5-0. But, I think the harsh reality for BYU right now, when you look at the Big 12, is that, most people would say, hey, Utah is the best team in the Big 12. And what I'm going to say about Utah is that they're 4-1 playing their backup quarterback for most of the season. So, when Utah is right, I think they're still clearly the best team. But I think BYU deserves a ton of credit. I think, it would have been easy to come out this season and be a 2-2, a 500 team. It would have been easy to be that kind of team.
I'm not ready to write off the Utes is still the best team in the conference. I think that is a big stretch. Now, if you want to add a comma, if Cam Rising's playing, sure, we can do that. The very fact is, Utah wins that game if Cam Rising's playing. It's the first time I have felt that way this season. And we've seen very little of Cam Rising and a whole lot of Isaac Wilson. And I think Isaac Wilson is the future of Utah football. There is no question about that. You've got to score touchdowns in the red zone. And Isaac Wilson did not, and I don't think could have executed against Arizona in those moments. Cam Rising, I believe, would have. He's excellent under pressure. He's excellent in the red zone. And Isaac Wilson's just not ready for that. I'm not ready to say that they are still the best team in the conference. I know for a fact Oak State, to your point, is not the best team in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And if we sit here on a Victory Monday and we talk about we talk about the best teams in this conference, it's got to be Iowa State right now, in my opinion. Another convincing win, another really solid, not spectacular offensive performance. I would put them there. Frankly, I would put Utah there if Cam Rising plays after the bye. And you would fully expect him to play after the bye. He almost played this weekend, but I'm tired of the excuses for Cam Rising in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of it. I look at the Ohio State this weekend. Will Howard misses a play because he gets the wind knocked out of him at the end of the first half. And what happens? Your backup quarterback comes in and throws a touchdown. That's because you have elite depth. With all due respect to Isaac Wilson in Utah, Isaac Wilson's not ready for that moment. Unfortunately, he's just not ready for that moment. And if you have national championship aspirations, and I believe that is the only goal year in and year out at Utah football, to win a national championship, Isaac Wilson isn't ready to do that.
Right.
I think it's as simple as that.
And I think that, at some point you're right. I mean, the Cam Rising injury train has to come to an end at some point. And I think, the hard part with this injury with Cam Rising is that, and again, it's just fans being fans, right? It's not like the media is saying this, but a lot of fans feel like, hey, like, what's going on with dude's hand? Like, the reporting was he hit the Gatorade cooler against Baylor, gashed his hand open. His hand is all swollen, but he's able to put a glove on his hand. So how swollen can his hand actually be? Like, so a lot of people are frustrated with the Cam Rising situation, as you should be. I'm with you, but ultimately, I'm still going to go out and say that we're still not even halfway through yet. I mean, we're entering
very early.
Yeah, I mean, we're entering week 6. Like, we're late enough in the season where the narratives are starting to take hold. Like, when you look at, the K-States, the Oak States, Tech, BYU, when you look at these teams, you kind of know who they are. But I think you're right. Like, if Cam Rising doesn't play after the bye week, like, now we got to start saying, okay, yeah, we're going to have to downgrade Utah because Cam's just not around. He's not available.
If Cam Rising doesn't play after the bye week, it's Isaac Wilson's team. Plain and simple. If you can't come out and perform after the bye week, because we're going to be at week 6 at that point, you're married to Isaac Wilson, who is not a bad quarterback. And he is the future of the Utah Utes. He is going to be here for the next 3 years. There's nothing wrong with him. But understand, we have to adjust expectations at that point.
Right.
Because you look at Utah's schedule, you're at Arizona State. I would expect there to be blood on the field for the Sun Devils.
Mm-hmm.
That game's in Tempe on October 11th. There's going to be pain because this Utah team is going to be looking for revenge. There is no question about that. That's a get-back game. But you're home for TCU, at Houston, BYU, at Colorado, Iowa State, at UCF. You should run the table. But what did this one loss do for the Utah Utes? Well, it took away your margin for error. There's no more room for error now. Nobody in this conference is going undefeated. That's the reality of Big 12 football right now where we're at. Nobody in this conference is going undefeated. But a 2-loss team probably does not get to the conference championship.
Right.
And you've got multiple games on this schedule. Because wait, everybody sit up, clear your throat. What did I tell you about Coach Prime? Do you believe? I believe. I believe.
Do you believe?
Yes, I do, Coach.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. It's the singular best performance under Deion Sanders at Colorado.
100%.
It's the defensive front. I don't know what you gave them. Injectables, edibles, keep doing it. Whatever it is, man. Whatever happened.
Bro.
Whatever happened in the heat and humidity over Orlando.
And B12.
That's exactly right. Lidocaine and B12. What I'm telling you is that's the best performance I've seen out of a Deion Sanders Colorado football team. And they're on the schedule, and the Rocky Mountain rivalry is real.
Yeah.
Utah, Colorado is real. And I think Deion Sanders arrived at Colorado.
Yeah,
Deion Sanders arrived in the Big 12.
They lose that game last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, I just point out that that's at Utah on November 16th. Colorado at Utah at Folsom Field, excuse me.
At Colorado.
It's in Boulder.
Yeah.
I am today. If you asked me today, and I don't know if Cam Rising plays in that game, I lean towards Colorado because that offense, Travis Hunter's the best player in college football.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the explosiveness of that offense is definitely something that, would challenge the Utes. I think that's what we saw against Arizona.
Yes.
I think the difference with Colorado versus Arizona is Colorado's got 3 guys that can run by you, not 1. And I think that, it'll be interesting to see how again, this season unfolds. But I think that, all the people that hate on Deion Sanders and hate on Colorado, you're looking foolish today. That was one of their best performances. They go on the road, hostile environment, and just put together a complete performance.
And what are you seeing out of Colorado that should terrify you?
They're running the ball.
And why are they running the ball? And where are they running the ball? They're running behind Seton at left tackle, a true freshman who's developing. Deion can't recruit. Remember, all of the hyenas on this show, Deion can't recruit.
He rolled over 70%
Portal.
of his roster.
All he does is portal. Well, apparently he recruits left tackles and develops them because Seton looked really good. And I also remind you, everybody that was ripping Deion for hiring Warren Sapp, and he's a felon, and apparently he can coach the defensive line because they came with some intensity.
Hey, who had the number 1 rushing attack in the country heading into this game? Oh, that's right. The UCF Knights. That's right.
Well, and the biggest issue is you held UCF to 21 points, and RJ Harvey was your leading rusher and receiver. So apparently they play corner, and I'd remind you, Shiloh Sanders, one of I think probably the second best safety in the Big 12, hasn't played in 2 weeks and will be back after the bye. Colorado's on the way up.
And by the way, I do believe that Travis Hunter is leading the way in the Heisman.
He is the best player in the country.
I don't know.
122 snaps.
And difference-making plays on both sides. It's not just the number. Like, the number matters, but it would be one thing if it was like, hey, he's playing all these snaps, but he's not really influencing the game. He's just out there a ton and deserves. Like, no, this is somebody who's playing 122 snaps and is beating your ass the whole game, and he's doing it on both sides of the ball. And I just don't think we've seen anything like that before.
And then I hate to do it. With the 500 people watching the show. I hate to do it. Where does Oak State go from here?
I'm a man.
Because if you're an Oklahoma State fan, I don't turn the TV on the rest of the year. Because what happened to Oak State this weekend and what has been, what's the right word? What's been perpetrated against Pokes Nation?
Yeah. With
Mike Gundy and whatever that is offensively. Because I am going to say again, Alan Bowman's an average-ass quarterback, and you don't have a second-best option. You're not playing well on the offensive line. You are not rushing the ball. I don't want to hear about Ollie Gordon, and I don't want to hear about – you don't have an offense. And you have this guy in Mike Gundy. And again, let's have the conversation. Because we've talked about this for 18 months now. And Mike Gundy continues to talk about how DUIs are okay. And Mike Gundy continues to not discipline his players getting in trouble. And Mike Gundy, on top of all of that, isn't winning football games. You lost to Isaac Wilson and the Utah Utes. Because remember, Cam didn't play in that game. So you're losing games. You went to Manhattan, Kansas, and you died. Your season ended. That was an elimination game. K-State showed up, and the bigger issue is they ran all over you again. Much like Mekhi Bernard and the Utah Utes, who had a career day that day, ran all over you. K-State ran all over you again. And I'm sorry, did you show up in Manhattan, Kansas, and think that they were going to throw their way to a win? That K-State was going to throw the ball to beat you? Everybody and their brother knew that they were going to run, and you did nothing to stop it. How many times are you going to drop 4 guys against the run in Manhattan over the weekend? So your defense isn't good, and your offense is embarrassingly bad. How long, Oak State fan, are you going to make excuses for Mike Gundy? How long are you going to accept the mediocrity that Mike Gundy has overwhelmingly been for the last decade? When is it time in Stillwater to start talking about making a change with Mike Gundy? And I think that time is right now.
Yeah, and I think it's a really valid point. You know, you have a defense under Mike Gundy, and I think there's 2 different stories at play here with the defense and the offense. Both are bad. But I think on the defensive side, like, you make a great point. Like, you thought that your defense was good enough against a guy like Avery Johnson to only have 7 guys in the box. And I was
Good
like,
Lord.
hey, if you're just going to have 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers, and you're going to play single or double high safety, And, like, yeah, we're just going to run all over you. And that's exactly what took place. And I think, it's funny when you look to the offensive side, that same type of issue seems to take place. And we saw it all day against Utah. We saw it all day against K-State defense. Hey, we're going to load the box. We're going to play single high, and you're going to have to prove that you can execute as an offensive line and run it down our throat. And you couldn't prove you could do that. And then you've got an average-ass quarterback in Alan Bowman. And so the question I think has to start being asked is, yes, should Mike Gundy be fired? Yes. But more to the point today, what are we doing with guys like Casey Dunn? How long?
Offensive coordinator.
How long do dudes like this get to sit here and not have good game plans put together?
But listen, I'm not even telling you that it's time to fire Mike Gundy. It's time to start talking about significant changes in the way that he does business. Casey Dunn is number one. If you're getting Purdue firing Graham Harrell, what are you doing in Stillwater?
That's a great.
What are you doing in Stillwater?
Yeah.
It's not good enough at Purdue, but it's just okay. It's fine at Oak State.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's not. And I understand I'm not fire the coach guy. I just don't believe in that. But you've got to start asking questions. And I said this at Media Day. I'll say it again today, and I'm going to continue to say it. It goes back to Mike Gundy in Las Vegas saying, oh, who hasn't done that 1,000 times?
Right.
When he was referring to Ollie Gordon having a couple of beers.
And then getting in a car.
And driving drunk, even though there were alcohol bottles in the car and it wasn't, he just had there's no excusing that. And if that didn't throw you over the edge, this is a bad football team at Oak State right now. And you're looking at a situation where my buddy Casey Dunn's the offensive coordinator, so he's not going to be fired. Because that's what it's starting to look like.
Yeah.
And the truth about Alan Bowman, the average-ass quarterback at Oak State, the truth about Alan Bowman is he's actually not playing that poorly. If Alan Bowman was your worst issue, your biggest problem, you'd be a much better football team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lack of commitment to Ollie Gordon. It's a lack of sound schematics. It's a lack of poor fundamentals on the offensive line.
Yeah, I think there was I don't remember the exact stat, so forgive me if it's slightly wrong, but there's a stat going around Twitter right now that talks about how in the first 15 offensive plays for Oklahoma State, where, Casey Dunn has essentially scripted out those first 15 plays, just like every team does, their commitment to Ollie Gordon is there. It's like, I think they had like 12 to 15 carries, and he had like, I think it was like 50, 60 yards, something like that, like a good number for the carries. And then after that, Casey Dunn has no handle on the strategy, the game plan. And so, obviously a key component of any coordinator's offensive or defensive side of the ball, any key component or skill in that role is, hey, what's the score? How much time is left in this given portion of the game, quarter or half? And, how is the team playing? What's the vibe? So as an example for Oklahoma State, hey, are we running the ball effectively? Should we stick with that? Should we adjust the pass?
9 runs in the first quarter.
Yeah.
1 run in the second quarter.
Right. You see what I mean?
And so what started happening? Because you're forcing the run, you're kicking field goals. And you can't stop the run, so you're giving up touchdowns.
Yes.
You're kicking field goals, they're scoring touchdowns. And so then you're not scoring touchdowns and you're behind, so what do you immediately do? Well, you start a little fire over here and you just burn your play sheet and you start throwing the football over the field. And you start getting sad inside, deep inside your soul. The piano music is playing from deep inside your gully. And so you just throw out the game plan, and you don't have Mike Gundy capable of saying, no, we're going to run the football here.
Yeah.
We're going to commit to the run so we can run the clock and keep K-State's running game on the sideline.
Yes.
And maybe we score a touchdown, but that's not what you do.
And so it's just, for me, like as an observer of Oklahoma State, obviously not an Oklahoma State fan or supporter, just looking at this football program, like It's got to be incredibly frustrating. I'm frustrated with it, and if I'm frustrated with it, I can only imagine what an Oklahoma State fan feels watching this team, because
I agree.
it kind of is beginning to feel like when you lost to Texas in the Big 12 championship game, that was kind of the end of this incarnation of this team. Like, this roster kind of just isn't, that kind of took the wind out of their sails, and they're just not the same team this year.
Well, you find out who you are when you lose games. You don't, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I've covered the game of football for years. The best teams find out who they are when they lose games.
Right.
Tom Brady losing to the Giants on a perfect season. You know, this we're going to talk about this Baker Mayfield thing later in the show, where Bake was apparently questioning Tom's culture in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you either are a winner or you are a loser, and we usually find that out when you lose games, because winners are born in difficulty, in tough situations. And I think when you face those most difficult situations, this is in your life as well, you figure out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose to Texas last year, and you didn't lose to Texas, you were outclassed Oak State against Texas.
And that's not a disrespectful take.
Yeah,
That's
you figure out who you are. So let's get into the comment section right here on the Monty Show. In the comment section right now, who's the best team in the Big 12? And frankly, maybe not even who the best team is, but where are you with your team today in the Big 12? Because I think Iowa State today is the best team in the conference. But I think there's a lot of you that are wondering who you are as a football team this year.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about that. Let's hear from you. How do you feel about your club, and who do you think is the best team in the Big 12? Our comment section, as always, is presented by our good friends at Prize Picks, the best daily fantasy game in the business, with the best daily fantasy promotion I've ever seen. Use the promo code Monty. You make a $5 deposit, they're going to match that with $50 more. So you deposit $5, they're going to give you $50. You can play an entire season on $55 at Prize Picks. It's so easy as well. I tell you this all the time. You pick 3, not 6. My guy Dave, who is, and much to his credit, Dave is a devout Ohio State Buckeyes fan. I love you, Dave. But he sends me like a 7-pick Prize Pick play.
Well, Monty, I had Will Howard for more than 50 plays played, and he only played 49 because he was out for a play. What the heck? And
of course he's got Will Howard. Of course he's like, but then he's like throwing in Lamar Jackson on a demon for 200. I think Lamar Jackson's demon number was 279 yards passing. And I'm just like, you're hurting me watching you give your money away. Do a college football 3-pick, do an NFL 3-pick.
Yeah.
It's that simple. College football for 3 on a flex play. And that means you only have to get 2 of your 3 selections right. They pay you. It's not rocket science, boys.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 picks. Major League Baseball. How did Shohei not win the Triple Crown? But Major League Baseball, 3 guys, Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani in your lineup. Now that the Cubs are done, well, they've been done since spring training. But my point is, you can't pick Seiya Suzuki anymore. Right? You don't have good old Seiya to kick around.
Right. Old reliable.
Prize Picks. Great in the Major League Baseball playoffs. Great on Saturdays for college football. Even better for the NFL on Sunday.
Yeah.
Hook it up. Use the promo code Monty. Download the app in the App Store, Prize Picks. Open a new Prize Picks account. Make a $5 deposit. They'll give you $50 more when you use the promo code Monty.